Today we're going to talk about the Compromise of 1850. You can find this on Module 9, Lesson 1. It'll be pages 342 to 355 in your textbook. At the conclusion of the U.S.-Mexican War, the United States is going to acquire California, or what's going to become California, Nevada, Arizona, New Mexico, and Utah. Now, in 49, gold is discovered in California. And the population of California will go from about 160,000 people to over 300,000 people in just a few years. This is going to cause California to need, state government versus a territorial government. As this population grows, they're going to have needs that law enforcement and things of this nature, and they're really pushed to come in quickly into the Union. So when they draft their Constitution and they send it in, it's going to prohibit slavery. Now, we think of California, we think of the slave South, and we think of agriculture being the main economic driver. And when we think of California, agriculture is also big in California. But because of the folks who are going out there for gold, most of them are going to come from the north. And they don't want to compete with slave labor. Some of them have moral objections to slavery. But they definitely don't want to compete with slave labor. So when they come out there, they vote on their Constitution, they prohibit slavery. This is going to cause an uproar in the South. Just almost like when Missouri applies as a slave state in 1819, and Henry Clay has to come in and work out the Missouri Compromise. Missouri come in as a slave state, you had to have a free state come in. Massachusetts relinquishes its claim on what's now Maine. Maine will come in as a free state. Slavery will be excluded north of the southern border of Missouri. That's 36.5 degrees north. So slavery will be excluded in the remainder of the Louisiana Territory, and no restrictions on slavery south of that. Well, Louisiana was already in the Union as a slave state in 1803. So that just left Arkansas. The thought was possibly extending this line, this 3630 line, across this new territory. But with California straddling that and coming in the Union as a free state, this is going to lead to uproar in the South. Clay steps in again. The big fear has always been secession, that the southern states would secede from the Union if they didn't get their way. So we keep going through these series of appeasements, to the slaveholders in the South. Under the Compromise, California would come in as a free state. Second part of the Compromise, the New Mexico Territory, this area here, no restrictions on slavery. Really meaning that they would allow the voters to decide later on, but that they would have no restrictions on slavery. The third part, the New Mexico-Texas border dispute, is settled in the favor of New Mexico. The fourth, the slave trade, but not slavery itself, will be made illegal in the nation's capital, Washington, D.C. And Washington, D.C., sandwiched right between Maryland and Virginia, in the slave South, did allow slavery. Slavery was always legal there. But what the embarrassment was, foreign dignitaries and people coming into the nation's capital would see slave auctions going on in the streets. So they're going to abolish the slave trade, but not slavery itself. Now, the fifth part of this, and this goes along, the two most important parts are going to be California statehood as a free state, and this fifth part, a stronger fugitive slave clause. We already had a slave clause in the Constitution, even though it didn't mention slavery. Slavery is never mentioned until the 13th Amendment. But it says anybody that is held to servitude that escapes, they have to go back and serve out their servitude. What this new slave clause does is it allows federal marshals to go into free states and apprehend people. It also allows them to deputize the citizens to make them help. Whether or not they support slavery or not, it makes it against the law for them not to help. And you can be fined if you refuse, and you could be fined if you're caught helping an escaped slave, like the Underground Railroad. If somebody was apprehended under this new fugitive slave law, they're not allowed to testify on their own behalf and say, hey, I'm not a slave, or You know, I'm a free person. They can't say anything. They can't have witnesses on their own behalf. So they don't get to speak. The second part is the judge that hears the case gets paid $5, okay, if he finds that the person is free or that the person is not a fugitive slave. But they get paid $10 if that person is found to be a fugitive slave and sent back into slavery in the South. Tomorrow we'll pick up on John Brown and Pottawatomie Creek. Thank you for your time.